Here is my feedback on DP26 Student C for their Biology IA draft. Now, as I've said for other students, you do not need a table of contents. You do not need all this dead space here. However, if you've got words left over from your 3,000 word count, it doesn't do any harm. But if you're being pressed to compress everything to 3,000 words, you can lose it. Looking here, you do not need to be saying HL because it's the same for standard level, higher level. Get rid of that. When I look at this is not how we cite in MLA, which is what we use at our school. I'll talk about that more at the end of this video. You're talking about watercress. Where's the scientific name? Where's a picture of it? Further down, you talk about chemical components. Now, some chemical components, no, that's general. You're writing this introduction as an introduction to your experiment. So make sure you find the bleach you used, the components it has, and then talk about them. And harmful, come on, this is DP Bio. What do you mean harmful? What do they do? Do some research and add in a cited section for your specific bleach and the chemicals in there. Same, this is not how we cite stuff. Really, that's one of the big things that needs to be fixed in this. Now, in your first paragraph, you talk about the main step is root germination. I'm sorry, but it's not. There are all sorts of steps from water imbibing, coming into the seeds, through to enzymes hydrating. You need to probably talk about that whole process in your background information. Root germination, and it's not called a root, by the way, you need to look that up and use the proper language, is what you're using as your indicator for germination. Some domestic cleaning products, again, are relevant. Talk about the one used in this investigation. Now, looking at your hypothesis with two parts, this is a statistical hypothesis, not a biological or scientific hypothesis. Needs to be changed. Scientific hypothesis, if something happens, your independent variable, then I expect something else to happen about your dependent variable in and describe the context, experiment, germinating seed, species, etc. with cited reason. So that really needs to be updated to be relevant. Looking at the variables, writing that these concentrations are used because they are the easiest concentrations to manipulate is not a good thing to write. Firstly, it's not. 50% would have been the easiest, half and half. You chose not to use that for a specific reason. I know it and you know it. Take that reason, extrapolate it to your maximum of 6%, then talk about why you use the rest. This needs to be developed more. Now you talk about germinating seeds. What characteristic was actually used? You never state in this report what you measured. There's a couple of standard characteristics used for when seeds germinate. You need to look this up, research it, throw that research out, and write here, what exactly you counted as a germinated seed. Now, when I looked at this, I thought, why is this here? As I've said in class, make a 3-column table with the variable, how it's controlled, why it's important to control it. I thought, no, redo it. Then when I scrolled down, I thought, oh, you have done this. Excellent. Then I wondered, what's the purpose of this? Are you not duplicating information that's here? You probably need to take anything up in this section and add it in down here so it's clear. Now, as a trick, you can move these cell borders in. That first column can be much smaller. The second one can be smaller, giving you more space for your details in the final 2 columns. Do not use the word amount. Where is it? We're somewhere in here. Use the word you really mean, because amount is just a cop-out. It's what students use when they don't really know what they're talking about. I can't see it now. It's in here somewhere. You'll find it. Materials. Well, bleach. What bleach? How much? is the big thing. What volume? Not using amount, we're using the right language. The image needs work. Come on, look, all the words are missing. I presume you built it in another program, copied and pasted in. My suggestion is go back to the other program, take a screenshot and drop that in so all of the text actually shows up and is useful to you. We look at the method. If I look at might not have, come on, we're not talking about might and might not have. We need to do better. This is based on what you did, what you researched. Good to see this bleach concentrations table out here. Good to see a table could have a few more words. Volume of water and bleach used to make each something that makes sense here. Not sure why you've got inconsistent decimal places, but that's your choice. I personally wouldn't do it. Okay, looking at this. Okay, label them with what? How many discs are you using in each container? Were these random, or did you spread them out carefully to be far apart? This could be tidied up. I love the step repeat, but maybe with 10 mils of water, of 10 mils of solution, so that it's just a little bit clearer. But it does save having to rewrite everything. I agree it's the way to go. Again, we still don't know what you're observing as a sign of germination. Needs to be clear. And 11, what volume? Same solutions, okay, but remoisten with what volume of liquid? Risks. Great to see seed disposal mentioned here. However, what about disposal of the cotton pads? They're the ones soaked in bleach, and so the more toxic. Containers too, were they disposed of or cleaned to be reused? Reusing it may well become ethical or environmental. Looking at results, first thing, every single table needs a descriptive and detailed title. More than that. I look at this and go, well, where's the uncertainties? Every table needs uncertainties. And I would suggest a sentence underneath stating why you chose that uncertainty. Because in this case, you're choosing it. You're deciding based on how accurate you believe you were. Good to see uncertainties here, and I think they're appropriate. I like that. Again, title details. Column 3 needs to be renamed. It's got the same title as this column, but the numbers are different. We both know what it is, but it's certainly not clear from what's written. Standard deviation, is that in the numbers or in this column? I think we know the answer, but it's not clearly written. Now down here, you talk about rate. Rate is a scientific word for how fast something goes with speed. It has to incorporate the idea of time. Since there is no idea of time in this, probably you need to change that word for something else. Or build it into a rate. Is this per day, per 2 days? But at the moment, it's not presented as a rate. This is good and clear. I like it. Again, remember to get to the top of each criteria, you've got to make sure we know why this was chosen, and which I suggested you put below the table. It could also be here. Right, looking at the graphs, get rid of graph 1. Sorry, just not needed. 0.985. Oh, exactly the same. But now we know that this is a percentage. So it means a lot more. Because if I look at this, oh, 19. Is this out of 20? Is this out of 100? Is this out of 30? 25? Because that's the number here. It's not clear. You only need this graph. However, how do I know this is concentrated? How do I know this is percentage? When it's not written in the title. Add it in. What are these error bars? It just doesn't tell us. So again, add a sentence at the end of your title. Error bars are Also, there appears to be an error. We go up here, the 6% has a bigger error bar than 4 and 5. Okay, there's our data. We go to the graph, 6% no longer has a bigger error bar. So there's something wrong with your error bars. Now, why is this a straight trend line? I suggest a slightly curved down line is fitting this data better. So really, I suggest make that change, and again, you'd use your R² value to indicate that the new line is a better fit. Now, up here you talk about 2 to 48 hours, down here you talk about 2 days. It's minor, but be consistent. Use consistent language all the way through. Okay, you can get rid of most of this. Don't just restate the values. If I want to see the values, I don't want to have to pick them out of a long-winded paragraph like this. I go up here, boom, there's my values. So the conclusion is not where you restate values. You restate trends and patterns, which, that's all we need here. Good to see you've used the R² value as evidence for your trend line. You could add in an analytical statistic like a one-way ANOVA for further evidence, doing it through Microsoft Excel or the Social Sciences Statistics website. But you haven't talked about your error bars. There's 3 things you can talk about here: the size of them being small, the fact that most of them don't overlap, and also with the new trend line, if the trend line pretty much is within the standard deviation for all points, that also is worth observing and using it to comment on the accuracy of the data collected in this experiment. Then we come to the words might be. So we don't write this might be. That's like a guess. You need to look at what other researchers have found out and state sodium hypochlorite has been shown to damage the seed coat, which is likely the cause in this case, with a citation. It reads as a guess. When you've done that, you've got evidence to support what you're doing. Now, a whole strand of the criteria for the conclusion is about cited comparisons and cited explanations. This is absolutely missing here and something you must have if you want to do well in the criterion for the conclusion. Coming to the evaluation, this here is conclusion again. Either delete it or move it up to your conclusion. Then notice you've already got a similar paragraph and figure out which one you keep and which one you remove. Okay, fair start. Remember, strengths are no longer part of DP Bio, DP Sciences. Get rid of it, not needed. Well set out for your weaknesses, I like it. However, this is waffle. Okay, apart from the spelling mistake, do the experiment and control. What do you mean? Either remove it, or I'd suggest better still, actually add in what you mean. So that it's, look down here, 3.5%, you've made it clear. However, the 4% here, you've already got 4%. You did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that doesn't make sense, needs to be fixed. I like the second person to, these are sensible ideas once you fix those. Now, this is the next area you need to fix. Our school uses MLA. This is not MLA. You need to be using MLA. The first thing, it's called work cited. Secondly, this is not how we format them. Thirdly, they should be in alphabetical order. These are all things that need to be fixed and won't take much time. I suggest you watch the video Don't Eat Yellow Snow I made on citing. It's on YouTube and linked from the data tab in our class website. So you can reformat and fix this to be correct.